I'm Elton Sylvie, a short grower, a content creator, and I'm on a mission to let people know that a journey that begins from within is the answer. Saying this took me about 8 hours of work. Last week, I went to a Chris Do workshop, personal branding workshop. I had 3 intentions in mind, just 3. One is I get to see how a workshop is run, be open to new possibilities. Last but not least, to not be Chris Do, to not want to be him. I respect him though, but not to be him. To learn the techniques and that's it. I have a few points on how the whole day went that I'd like to share with you. So the first one is even before the event, even a month before the event, I spent roughly about $1,000 for this 8-hour plus workshop. To put in context how crazy this is, I got laid off and then a couple weeks later I see that this workshop is happening in Vancouver. I was making a little over $5,000 a month, so $1,000, that is 10% of my income. I have not even come close to spending that much on a personal development activity. I realized the more I spend on a personal development activity or anything for that matter, I'm more serious about it. He starts off with a story, and this story is The Missing Piece story by Shel Silverstein. And it's about Pac-Man. Pac-Man-esque. So this Pac-Man-esque has a missing piece at the mouth. And it goes about, it's like, hey, I gotta find my missing piece. And it starts rolling as fast or as slow as it could. Because remember, it's not a complete circle. And it starts singing, oh, where's my missing piece? Where's my missing piece? I'm looking to find you my missing piece. And along the way, as it's going, it sees a worm. It talks to the worm. It's like, hey, have you seen my missing piece? And then it's able to smell the flowers as it's going so slowly. And on it goes. And it keeps finding other pieces. But, the pieces end up being too short, too long, too sharp. And then finally it keeps going. It goes through oceans. It finds different pieces, but never his piece. Some pieces wanted to be their own piece. But then finally it comes across this one piece. That's like, hey, I want to be my own piece, but I'm also willing to be part of someone else's piece. And then they try it out, and voila! A full circle. Wow, life is amazing, isn't it? Well, now because it's a full circle, it keeps going fast. It keeps rolling. It can't stop to say hi to the worm. It can't smell the flowers, and it can't sing anymore because the mouth is full. And then it realizes and drops the missing piece, realizing that there's never a missing piece altogether. Alright, so that was the story that he shared, and he went around asking like, hey, what does this story mean to you? Pretty quickly I was like, acceptance. And then in typical Chris Do fashion, he was like, oh, okay, that's just a word, tell me more. And that helped unlock something in me at that point in time, because I was like, hey, my acceptance was initially based on from like parents, society, what have you, based on my achievements, right? I would get, let's say, a 90. People would be like, hey, what happened to the other 10? Things of that nature, right? And I had already began my self-acceptance journey, but not publicly. And I think as I share that, and this is probably my own self-importance talking, I felt that he saw me, like he seen me, I felt seen, and he was like, yo, I'll help you out. So on the board, he starts writing paranoia, pronoia. Paranoia, obviously everyone knows, it's like the world is out to get you. Pronoia is everything happens for your benefit. Asks about, what stories in our lives indicates to pronoia as opposed to paranoia. He loves comics. So, as you can guess, this was about a hero's journey. And I took it as my journey of acceptance. Self-acceptance, specifically. More specifically, public self-acceptance. After putting down pronoia, paranoia, it's like, who are your villains? Right? Name the villains or the things that are your villains in your life that's preventing, in this case, me, from self-acceptance. My own shame, my parents, white men, attractive women, tall men and women, money makers, and older women. Oof. Quite a bit of like villains and ideas that I have out there. This is important, so pay attention. I was only able to get to this work and do this work because I have so many things that I'm working on individually within myself. And I knew I couldn't open myself up completely because I also have a worthiness issue, but I knew I wasn't ready for that. This is where boundaries come in, and I placed a boundary on that. Like, hey, I'm only going to work on this public self-acceptance piece, and that's it. So if you want to learn more about boundary setting and how it can help you live your life, let me know. Okay, we're going to continue moving. So during breaks, remember, this is an 8-hour plus event. So during breaks, I would go and chat with my villains. And in this, I realized, hey, they're not really my villains. And I am opening up and accepting myself more and more to these people. And also I mentioned parents being the villain. Well, it's a little more deeper than that. So I know my parents did their best. I know it through their actions. However, I inherited their essence, their vibe, and that was the villain. This is why children learn not from what parents say, but from what parents do. You know I had to. Ooh, from a tactical perspective, here's a few things I learned. One is I gotta focus more on YouTube and LinkedIn. YouTube will help me get paid quicker for the value that I provide, and LinkedIn will help me get better reach quicker. Here's a tip here's the hack for IG Reels. Essentially what will happen is when we post a photo as a reel and then a quote and then a caption, the viewer will end up reading the caption, the video keeps replaying, and we get more viewership. Also, that personality matters way more than a person of character. He also went into his YouTube strategy, but legit at that point, it went way over my head. I barely am getting started into YouTube, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna focus on where I'm at and grow from there. I don't need that YouTube strategy right now. By this point, I was getting mentally exhausted. I was like, yo, I don't know how much more I can keep up with this like mental drain, and kind of shut down and go into the usual BS, right? Take excessive notes, video record the whole thing, daydream, chill out, what have you. On the hero's journey, there's darkness in the path. In Batman Dark Knight Rises, for him, it was the pit, the well-shaped prison. That was his darkness that he had to climb through. For Jesus, it was 40 days in the desert. So there is this point where the darkness has got to shine through and accepting it and moving past it. So this is where Chris Do goes into dark mode. What is dark mode? It is accepting and living in our shame. External and internal. So at this point, Chris starts going off script. Literally pulling out his phone, mirroring his phone on the presentation screen, going through his photos, making sure there's no NSFW pics as he's moving through, trying to show us the picture he wants, opening up his LinkedIn, trying to log into LinkedIn on the fly, right? Really off script stuff. And in that, I was able to see, wow, like he is living in his shame, like in a way, like when he's not able to log into LinkedIn, people laugh at him, right? That is a form of shame. And to just see him move through that, he eventually ends up. Some people help him out. That's the thing about paranoia. In that element, I was like, wow, okay, I'm leaning into my darkness now too. And I want to. So much so that right before the break, he asked if there's any question. I raised my hand, asked a question, and it was about boosting content. I was like, hey, when's a good time to boost content once I've uploaded it? Oh, and this answer like really melted my heart. He was like, why would you want to boost your content? I would love to just see you post the content and see how it does. Oh, Chris. Well, that is more than me boosting content. It has to do with my shame. After the break was the final push. Talking about the strategies on how to grow on social media, how to make money, how to design content, all that stuff. And then also accepting that someone else was taller than him. And that's where the seed was planted in my mind. Now is when I let him in. I trusted me to trust him to guide me. After 7 hours. Hey, I'm a tough nut to crack. But he did. He did in the most wonderful way and most respectful way he could. And then so now we have our worksheets, right? The worksheets that he and his team provided. So we're kind of going through who our villains are, what our limitations are, what our strengths are, all that stuff. So I'll save you those details. Or he reminded us at that point. It was like, hey, remember, at the end of this, we'll take 10 people and they will share their elevator pitch. So I was like, oh, okay, now the seed is getting sprouted. Our next hurdle was figuring out our shame, our deepest shame, right? So for me, it was, what was the thing that was preventing me from accepting myself publicly? And he gave a few examples, which are pretty cool. He was like, hey, one was designer to art prostitute, gold digger to gold digger, and introvert to loud introvert. I immediately knew mine after that exercise. You see, throughout the day, in conversations with people, with the villains, I heard it in the whisper. And it was that I'm short. And it's the first thing that people notice. And I've known for a long time. Over a decade at this point. And I have tried running away from it in all these different directions. I started growing in all these different directions when I couldn't grow vertically. I would watch a TikTok video of this guy adding in metal rods in his leg to grow taller, to grow in different directions horizontally as well. And just so I would never hear someone else say it. And I would hope anytime in a conversation that no one would just like put it out there. So I cowered through and through. So what this meant is anytime I was feeling myself, feeling good, feeling happy, feeling confident, the people that want to tear me down will immediately point at that. Immediately. And so, for anyone shorter than 5'7", especially a man, if they have not gone through or talked about their height as an insecurity, they're lying to you and they're lying to themselves. Because in this world, especially for a man, a lot of his acceptance and worth is determined by his height, how tall he is. Like, look at all the CEOs out there, look at all the men winning, most of them are tall. I'm not saying that they didn't do what they needed to do. I'm not saying they didn't put in effort and work. But when you have public acceptance, it's much, much easier to reach the top. Why you want to reach the top is a whole nother topic altogether. But it's easier. Don't get me wrong, effort has to be made. So, even with women, attracting women, what is it? The tall guy, right? Like, there was a study too. It was like based on every inch of a man's height, his like sexual marketplace value went up like 5-10 fold, what have you. And for someone like, what was it? It was like someone that was 6 feet tall, they only had to make somewhere around 60 to 70K. But for a man to be equivalent to that's shorter, it was something like 5'8", 5'9", making over $150,000. A man's height is such a important point in society. Maybe it used to be, yo, but now in this age, it doesn't. And that's the beauty of it. That's where I'm blessed to be in this age. Anyway, so now at this point, I was like, yo, I am done. I am done running away from this. Like, I have accepted it for a long time. It's just I never publicly accepted it. So I'm done running away. I'm gonna live my life, and I will be the one to say that I'm short, so that I take away the power from anyone trying to put me down. And so the time arrived. He asked 10 people to come on stage and give their elevator pitch. And I was ready. He gave us 2 minutes. I walked in there like in 10 seconds. He's like, damn, you've been working for like you've been working on this for a while? I was like, yeah, man, like ever since you mentioned it, like, oh, like I gotta, like, I'm ready to accept this now publicly. So, you know, as I'm standing there waiting for the other 10 or the other 9 to come up, I like record a video too. You know, you'll probably be able to see it here. Chris goes and sits in my seat. The camera's right behind him, so he's like, hey, look into the camera as you give your elevator pitch. And then as the other 9 show up, it's like, hey, go on whenever you're ready. This is where the hero's journey comes full circle. He is first made aware of where he is at. And then it's realizing who the people that wronged him are, the villains. It's going through the darkness, accepting that weakness, that limitation, that shame. And that shame or that weakness is actually what catapulted him anyway towards his mission. Because if it wasn't for my issues with height, I would not be where I am today, and I would not have figured out my mission. And then finally, on the hero's journey is the final boss, Chris Do. No, I'm just kidding. Himself. Oh. I'm Elton Sylvie, a short grower, a content creator, and I'm on the mission to let authentic people know that a journey that begins from within is the answer. Mic drop. Well, you know, mic drop. Boom, done, applause. Wow. I felt the weight of who I used to be just crumble. Just absolutely crumble. Like in that, like I didn't even look at the audience as they were applauding me. Because I was so just caught up in me accepting it publicly. See, this is where it matters. I didn't need that. I didn't need the applause. I mean, obviously it was an awesome bonus. Awesome fucking bonus. But I didn't need it. And so I didn't really look. I was like, oh yeah, I heard it. I looked and I went back to my seat. It felt like this boulder that I was carrying on my shoulder, you know, I'm already short, like, and it was like shortening me even more. That just fell off. And if you get a chance to attend Chris Do's workshops, I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Especially if you're looking for personal transformation. Especially if you have begun doing some inner work and need a little bit of a push, need a little bit of some guidance. To the man himself, when you do watch this, thank you. Thank you. You are a breath of fresh air in this world, and you guided me by shining the spotlight on where I needed to go. Ultimately, I had to take the action, which I did. And so, I thank you. That was an incredible experience, and I couldn't have leveled up in this way if it wasn't for that guidance. And for that, I will forever be thankful. After that, we went out to drink, have a good time, mingle, network. Oh, it was amazing, but I didn't drink though. I just drank a soda because that was my intention. I didn't want to drink that day. Through setting boundaries, I was able to specifically work on this public self-acceptance piece. You know how I talked about the worthiness issue that I have too? Well, I made sure to not talk about that. He tried like once or twice for me to talk about that as well. I was like, nope, I placed a light boundary and he respected it. That's because I knew I still have a lot of internal work to do before I start making that more public. Most of the time when we share everything. Like once that flip has been switched of like I've allowed someone in, we share everything. Because no one has taught us about boundaries, that hey, I can share this one aspect of myself, truly be vulnerable in it, but the other aspect that I'm still working on, that I know I don't want to make public just yet, stop right there. And the only way to do that is through boundaries. Chris talked about this concept of emotion. If there's too less emotion, we forget it. If there's too much, then it's PTSD. Right? So if I end up talking about my worthiness issue, crap, like that would have led me down a very, very wrong, bad rabbit hole. I would have easily been triggered. I would have been like, oh my God, this is my enemy. I cannot trust him anymore. All this, everything, all of that. But because I have these boundaries, I was able to be like, nope, I don't want to talk about this. This is why I created the boundary setting blueprint to lead a happier life within 12 weeks. I am taking 5 clients in, 2 in March and 3 in April. For the first 2 clients that come my way, it'll be $250 a week, and after that it'll be $300 a week. So if you're interested, there's a link below that will take you to my page, and I talk more about it and what I will cover with you in those 12 weeks. And if you're already interested and want to move forward, I also have a sign-up sheet. That is just so I know you're interested, and then once I get that list of people that are interested, it'll help me see who is an acceptable fit for the program. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more on learning about the self, placing boundaries, getting laid off from a job, and creating an online business, and leading a fulfilling life that you want. Until the next one, stay blessed.